Hi, everyone, and welcome to Standing in Our Truth. We're so excited to be here. It's the beginning of March. My name is Richa, and we got the fabulous TJ over here with us. How are you, TJ? I know that baby's about to pop, so I need an update.
I'm doing good. We're officially in the third trimester, so things are moving along. Nursery's getting ready, and I'm just excited to welcome baby Ziva into the world. And Cameron, my husband, he has just dolled up this princess room, and it's so beautiful to see him assume the role of first time father. So we're doing really good over here. And I get to see you live in person next week for the baby shower. So lots of things to be grateful and excited.
I'm so excited to see you in person. It's been way too long. We get to celebrate Princess Diva, and you guys are going to be the best parents. So I'm just excited to celebrate that and have your family and friends. And we get to do some of these live together as well. So I'm for that. I'm excited about our topic today. I feel like everything we've talked about has pretty much brought us to the topic that we chose, which is inner child work and internal family systems work. And, it sounds all complicated, but it's something that relates to all of us in some way or another. For those of us who are kind of new to it, I would say how we describe our inner child, it's just the representation of our earliest experiences and the emotions we felt at those times. And as we talked about in episode 1, we're all born a clean slate, and it's kind of our experiences that make us the way we are and shape our personalities and bring about surface issues, right? Like the things we talked about in the past: addiction, eating disorders, anxiety, depression. And so taking those internal parts into consideration, we're going to take a deep dive today personally and how we relate to these. And I'm sure all of you guys are going to relate as well in different ways. So TJ, what do you think about this whole topic? Tell us a little bit about your inner child.
Yeah, I feel like you're my therapist. Tell me about your inner child. I was introduced to inner child work early in my recovery. And I remember in the treatment program I was in, they talked about internal family systems in orientation day on day 1. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, you're going to bring my family into this. Like, I'm going to sit on a couch with my mom and dad. We're going to have to hash it out. But that's not what internal family systems is. And the way I've related to it is that I have all these voices in my head, and they each play this role. And what I found and learned from internal family systems and the founder, Richard Schwartz, is they all have a role. And, we've got that manager, we've got that person that tries to control our days. My manager is alive and well. Like it's constantly telling me what to do, and I have to get that manager in line. There's the firefighter who all of that internal wounding leads to just a firefighter wanting to extinguish things. When I snap, it's the last straw moment for me. And the exile, that little child that was never heard, the needs weren't met. And I got to meet that exile in some of my therapy work. What I learned is that through inner child work is that we get to reparent ourselves. And through that, it's understanding the wounding and what that little child needs. And so how about you? How's it shown up for you?
I've done some IFS work for many years. Obviously, I learned about it in school in the beginning. And when they kind of bring up those parts for you, it makes you think of yourself as wounded, which I don't think that was the goal. I'm not going to obviously speak for the expert, Richard Schwartz, but I think we don't mean for the parts to be negative or harmful. They're just how we recognize them within ourselves and how we cope with certain just experiences. They don't have to be negative experiences. We could have moved and it was just a positive experience, but the way we handled it might have been through our manager, like, okay, I can't control that we're moving, but I'm going to control what I eat now. And obviously I relate to the eating disorder piece, and that's how Richard Schwartz kind of brought up the whole IFS approach was through treating eating disorders. And so I think it's helped me just because it was a primary, a key in kind of helping me unlock some of my issues when it came to the way I controlled my food and the way I needed things to be at a certain level and perfect. That word, it kind of makes me cringe now because I'm like, I can't believe that used to be a goal, because life is so beautiful and so imperfect, and so nice to embrace that now. But yeah, that's one of the ways. And it also comes up in relationships, right? The way we identify in our relationships as sometimes we are the manager in our relationships because that's how we're used to managing ourselves. And that's come up for me a lot. And I've really worked hard on switching to, again, the focus back to me. Just because I can change a lot of things within myself, that doesn't mean I can change another human being. So parts work has really helped in a lot of my relationships with siblings I'm working on, with my marriage. And yeah, tell us a little bit about how it comes up in relationships for you.
I love that you say parts work because I relate a little more to when it's referred to as parts work than internal family systems. Because then I think of the inner mother and the inner father, which also have roles in my inner child upbringing. But my parts show up pretty frequently in my relationship. I mean, relationships are mirrors, right? For our own healing and for our own understanding and awareness. And so in my relationship with Cameron, I see, the inner child who can't get her needs met snap and this firefighter comes out. But the inner child that doesn't get her needs met didn't know how to articulate or communicate that. And so for me, what I end up doing and what I've learned to do is actually just get in touch with myself first. And that's why I have this practices with meditation and just really getting in tune with myself and asking myself, like, what is it that I need? Or just connecting to myself through breath work or exercise or somatic experiences so that I can really resonate with who it is that's speaking, which part is in need in the moment, who is trying to take the lead right now. And typically it's the manager. I mean, the manager is like, you should be doing this. If you don't do this, then these are the consequences. And that's not a way to live life. Like my goal when I got into recovery was I want to live free. Like I want to live a life that is fluid, that flows energetically. And this control mechanism of that manager part is someone that I don't relate to as much anymore. Lately, as I've been pregnant, it's been the healing of the inner child and connecting with myself at like 6 or 7 years old. So I'll visually remember experiences. And I think I've shared on a podcast before, I don't remember a lot from my childhood. Part of it is I blocked it out. Part of it was there was just so much going on. But I'll try to connect with this 6 or 7 year old and just ask her what she needs and affirm that she's loved and she's safe. And a lot of my parts work has been healed through affirmations. And I love Louise Hayes and all of her How to Heal Yourself and her literature on just affirming thoughts that you are perfect, right? And putting that out into the universe instead of me being stuck in that fight or flight nervous wreck that I was, and just remembering that. And I always bring it back to spirituality, remembering that there's a higher power out there that has this all planned out for us, right? Our destinies were mapped out for us. And all I have to do is just show up and do the right thing. It's not always easy because there's a lot of voices. And I remember in one of my therapy sessions, I was afraid to share that I had voices because then I was like, I'm going to be diagnosed with some mental health disorder that I don't have. I just have dialogue with myself all the time. I found out recently too that there are some people that don't have inner dialogue. And within those therapy sessions, I learned the parts, internal family systems. And the second I was able to identify those different roles, it was another relief for me because I was like, okay, so they don't define me. They aren't who I am. They are just parts that are trying to protect me. And that protection mechanism no longer works for me. And so now I have to sit and connect with each of those parts, the manager, the exile, the firefighter, and just have this compassionate self to just say, what does that part need right now? Or it's time for that part to take a seat in the back, right? Like it's time for that part to just let me be, let the inner child be. And I've heard the inner child is really, as we get older, the higher self that we connect to. So that's how it shows up for me. And that's some of the work and the therapeutic healing I've had through it. And it's been a beautiful journey.
That is beautiful. I love that you can actually visualize yourself as a kid. That means you've really done the work and you mentioned that other people don't even have that internal dialogue. And usually that's, again, you're at the state where you probably need a lot more help if you can't even recognize like what's going on within, right? So just recognizing and loving the parts it's such a beautiful process. I got to do it myself, like in a deep dive sort of experiential situation last year when I did a workshop for a week, and it was hard work to dive back to childhood. And the weird part was that anytime I talk about this, including right now, I just see myself at 13 years of age, not before, not after. It's just weird. I remember being in a specific house. We lived in Redwood Shores. It was all white, and it was my 13th birthday, and where I was wearing a blue dress and I had blue pigtails with, wow, I'm wearing a blue headband today. But it was just a lot of blue because that was my favorite color at the time. And we're going to go to Fresh Choice for dinner. And that was like my big 13th like birthday celebration. And I was so excited. And I wondered why is that the rich I see? Why is it not the one that was in high school running track? Or why isn't it the one that was in India where I was born? But what I realized through that experiential work was that that time period, although, everything was going great. I was at Notre Dame for school. My parents were doing well. It all seemed to be doing well. I remember my sister wasn't living with us anymore. My parents basically decided it would be better for her to not be here with us in the United States, and that she needed to learn things in India, which I didn't understand that back then. Right. But there was that piece that she wasn't there. And then there was the piece that I remember everything being white and covered in plastic. Our remote controls, our couches, like it was beautiful, but it was all covered. And as a child, I don't think I felt free at that moment. And so in my therapeutic experience, I think I realized that those just, the attachment issues there with my sibling and with not feeling like I had a lot of freedom in my home, which I always like to disclaim that not blaming my parents in any way, they were doing the best they can, but that had an effect on me, which impacted my choices. The way my inner child, the way little Richard, reacted at that moment was trying to bring some control into my life, trying to keep people in my life. And just when you reach that moment of when it happened, again, like when we talk about attachment theory, isn't it beautiful that with IFS and attachment theory, like kind of figure out why you are the way you are. So I embrace little Richa now and love all the parts and remind myself that I can't control the world. It's beautiful the way it is, and I'm going to react the best way I can. So, yeah.
I love that you have these like very, very vivid memories. And I always think about, why do I picture myself at 6 or 7 in a soccer uniform? It's just something in that moment impacted us, or there was something in that season of our life was just extraordinary where we remember it. And I can just imagine you, little Richa, in the house that was like so clean and so white, because your house is like that now. And you're right. I love the disclaimer. Like what we've learned in our recovery is acceptance, right? That our parents did the best that they could. And in fact, they did more than enough for us. They parented the way that they knew. And it was a lot of survival as, immigrants to this country. So I love and adore my parents and your parents for sacrificing everything they did for us to be here today. But we attach to things at early ages and remember certain things. I remember the 6 or 7-year-old soccer player, and soccer was my whole life up until I went to college. And it was one of those picture days where like every team comes and gets their picture taken, and it's chaos. And I just remember the chaos of, I can't find my dad. I didn't know where he went. And I think I've talked about it, like the attachment to my dad was like, I felt unsafe in that moment. And so that's when I visualized myself. There's also a picture that I remember that from the picture day that my parents had framed in one of those glass frames. And so I remember that one vividly. But this stuff is so healing for us to talk about. And I hope that our listeners, as they're listening to us, like have fun remembering some of our childhood, that you'll do the same. When I connect to that child in that moment, I remember that she is safe and that she is secure and that I can trust myself as an adult. And I think part of the parts work and the internal family systems work is really learning how to reparent yourself and like trusting yourself in that process. I didn't trust myself for the longest time. You and I joke that like very indecisive. I can't make decisions sometimes, but sometimes I can make decisions like right away. I'm intuitively, I know, and I've learned to rely on my gut. I've had to work on keeping promises to myself, keeping promises to other people, being accountable, doing esteemable acts to build my self confidence so that when the higher self comes in or the manager comes in a more negative role, I can be confident within my own decision making to say, no, this is what I need right now. I don't need validation or approval from Richa or my parents or my husband for making this decision. And sometimes the decisions are as easy as we joke, what should I have for dinner tonight? Like what should I go and do this task right now or wait a little longer? And so in the process of us starting this podcast was a lot of healing of the inner voice and trusting our intuition and our gut to be able to speak authentically. And that takes a lot of courage. So tapping back into IFS and parts work, learning the different voices in your head, the different parts, and being able to summon them and say, oh, the inner child is safe. The higher self is coming out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right? She's not going to be reprimanded. She's not going to be in exile. She's not going to be abandoned. She's not going to be rejected. And of course, not everyone is going to love us. Not everyone is going to like what we're talking about. But the goal of this was to use our inner strength, to use our voice to help other people. And that courage took a lot of healing of the inner child. And I think it was the same for you because you hadn't talked a lot about your mental health issues. We'd been working in the field, being mental health representatives, representing different recovery programs, being resources in the community for people, being voices against the stigma of mental health, helping shift organizational structures so that we can create greater access to care. But it wasn't until we actually got in touch with our own stories, our own selves, and what was holding us back from speaking our truth. For me, it was the inner child being abandoned and not being liked or being accepted. And so I shied away from starting a podcast or getting on platforms and speaking my truth because the inner child was just always in fear. And so the manager would try to make everything perfect and make, do you remember the first couple of recordings where we wanted it to be perfect? I think we had it scripted out, right? And so the way that we talked about this topic today and how we wanted to present it to our listeners was doing some of the scary work of inner child and IFS work is necessary for us to stand in our truth and have the courage to speak the truth. And I know that's been the same case for you.
Yes, absolutely. My ultimate goal is just to strengthen the self. And I feel like that's what we're encouraging others to do through this podcast. It was a little different than you in terms of why I didn't want, we're perfecting the first couple episodes, but why I was afraid to talk more about my issues and my mental health stuff and all the stuff that's imperfect was it felt like I was protecting my inner child. I don't want her to seem wounded. I don't want her to seem like she had a tough childhood. I don't want people to know that there is someone wounded down, inside me. And that was the complete opposite of what I needed to do to, have the pride I do while talking about things in this podcast. So I've gotten feedback from just like when we were debriefing before this, a lot of friends and family were like, whoa, I had no idea that you ever had an eating disorder or you ever had any of these things. Because as I was growing up, everyone was just like, Richa's so bubbly, so careless, so free, so funny. And I was protecting her until it came to this part of my life where I'm like, it's not about protecting her. It's letting her free as well. It's letting people know that she is bubbly, she is fun, she is free, but she also cries sometimes and she also has breakdowns. And so that is just like it was a beautiful moment for me. And I was like, wow, I had a breakthrough. Just, we see clients do this. And then when you see it for yourself, you're like, whoa, I just had a breakthrough. It's such a good moment. And we've got to see it for each other in different parts of this relationship, like from the beginning of our friendship to like moments when we were protecting our sweet little TJ and sweet little Richa to like, okay, let's let them meet and let's let them empower the world. So that's where I feel like where we're at right now. And it feels good. It feels really good.
It feels amazing. And I enjoy recording this podcast with you because not only is it a therapy session, but it's a chance for the inner child to come out, for the inner voice to come out. And she has been exiled and hidden for so long. We don't like practice this beforehand. And just for our listeners to know, sometimes we'll pick the topic. We'll have a list of running topics, but we'll pick the topic maybe 10 minutes, half an hour, a couple hours before, just because we want to get in touch with what's relevant for us right now and what we feel authentic in sharing. And that for me has been so important. Like, I don't want this podcast to ever become this rehearsed, scripted conversation between us, because what inspired us to do this was we would have these 2 hour long conversations on the phone and realize, wow, there's so much healing in us just connecting with each other and giving the space to each other to talk about the wounded parts, or, the protected parts, and, the little arguments that we have with our loved ones, our siblings, our families, our husbands, is because there's something within ourselves that's been disturbed. And I've learned that in the 12-step recovery model that I continue to bring up on every episode, is that, one of the prayers is that when I am disturbed, I have to look inside myself and find out, like, what is being touched right now? Who is being touched? Like, at what age is that child? Who is trying to sit in the driver's seat right now? And, like, I have to right size all of that and really connect to myself and let the higher self come out, let the authentic TJ come out. And it's not pretty all the time. Sometimes I'm very uncomfortable. I tell this story often where I felt when I first met my husband, and him, you just felt okay being myself, like just showing all the parts of me, because he just makes people feel very comfortable. And I'm so lucky to have him. But I remember hearing myself tell a story, and then I laughed at myself, and I was like rolling on the floor laughing. And I remember after that, I had this shame spiral, like, why did I do that? And I wanted to control that person and the image that person presented. And I'm like, oh my God, he's not going to love me back now. Now he thinks I'm probably crazy. When in fact, he's like, I loved you more for that. And it's not pretty work. It's that mirror work we talk about, like looking yourself in the mirror and saying, TJ, you are safe. Like, little TJ, little Richa, you are safe right now. You can let her come out and play. And my sister and my sister's partner help me do this all the time, is that we have to connect with that child, that wounded self, or just that part that didn't get their needs met, and let them play. Because if the manager is trying to get you through a to-do list every single day and trying to get you to achieve and get to the next level and master the next, whatever topic it is, you're never going to feel that freedom to play. And I've had to let myself experiment with play, because I'm like, what is play? Letting yourself relax and have fun, doing things that spark joy for you. And, through my recovery journey, I didn't even know that part of myself. I didn't even know what brought her joy. Like, I bought myself coloring books. I bought myself Lego sets to do, just to experiment, to find things that like spark joy, because I wanted to connect with that little TJ again. And I'm just so grateful for all the people that have come before us and who've done the work and have just shared their experiences and how they've done it. So my sister and her partner, every time you go to their house in Hawaii, they have you paint a rock. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, I'm just painting freely and I'm not trying to make it perfect. And those are the reminders that we just need to connect with that part of ourselves so that they feel loved enough to come out and feel free.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I love that they have you pay. They have you do that in so many treatment centers too. Do you remember? It's kind of a beautiful, like, wrapping up of a journey or starting one, I think. And that's something that I feel like I want to start doing now when I go on vacation or something. But yeah, I feel like everything we're talking about, it really just encourages self-awareness, like strengthening ourselves, healing, and then fostering harmony within ourselves with all the parts, the ones that we don't think are the best ones of us and the ones that we want to come through. There needs to be harmony between all of them. And I hope through this episode we were able to encourage people to think back to the moments where they were, they can see the little them just trying to live in this world the best they can and see how beautiful that child was, and not to suppress him or her. So here's to our healing, here's to our strength and moving forward. And we hope you guys are able to be encouraged by this episode.
Love it.